The Coonhound Collective podcast is brought to you by Conkeys Outdoors because we support the people who support our way of life, and CZ Welding and Fabrication, custom dog boxes built by hunters for hunters. Check these guys out today. This is your host, Jason Snellgrove, and I will be your guide as we journey down the road to pleasure hunt or hitting the long trail to those great comp hunts. This is the Coonhound Collective podcast. Thank you for joining us today on the Coonhound Collective podcast. Today I have Mr. Brandon Gaines with me from Oklahoma via telephone. Brandon, how's it going?
Going good.
Brandon, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of where you're from and how you got into coon hunting?
Well, I grew up in a little town called Blue Jacket, Oklahoma. I currently live in Fairland, Oklahoma, which is a small town itself. Uh, Coon hunting, it's kind of been in my family for before I was even around. My uncle, he used to coon hunt. Uh, Several of my cousins coon hunted and stuff. Well, my grandparents, they pretty much raised me all my life. And my cousin James Chandler and his brother Kevin and his dad Preston, they all used to come over to my grandparents and go coon hunting. Well, my grandparents, they was kind of the overprotective kind and didn't really want me to go, and they thought I was too little to be going hunting in the dark. So I'd get upset and go to my bedroom, and I'd lift my bedroom window up, listen to them hounds all night that they'd be out there hunting. I'd be out just laying in bed listening to them hounds. So actually, before I ever got to go coon hunting for my first time, I was already in love with coon hunting just by laying in my bed listening to a hound run. But the very first person that ever took me coon hunting was my uncle Jimmy Welch. Uh, he took me and my cousin Travis coon hunting for our first time, and that was the first time I ever got to see a dog go and tree a real live raccoon, and I was hooked. And that's pretty much how I got into coon hunting. I'm going to say it's probably just in my blood since almost all my family grew up doing it.
Yeah, well, I know listening to hounds, especially as a young person, that usually that and seeing a coon tree just usually winds it up and it's in you forever. So I know you currently hunt English dogs. What was your not just going with someone? What was your first hound? Was it an English or was you hunting something else?
The very first dog I ever owned was an English dog. I bought it as a puppy uh, from a guy in Cleora. His name was Jim Mullins. Uh, end up, that was who I got my first dog from. We ended up becoming real close friends over the years. And that little pup I got was out of a dog that he had, a female he called Rosie. And she was directly out of Iceman. And that pup there, I'll be honest with you, probably would have been a lot better pup if I'd known a lot more about coon hunting and how to train a pup. And I didn't know nothing. And my first couple of years hunting, I probably run more dogs than made.
Well, I think
and
that's the case with everybody. We all get that first pup, want to get it in the woods, and end up making more mistakes than we do good for it. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, but so I had that pup. I just liked it because I went to been around a lot of people that coon hunted and stuff, and most of them had walker dogs. And I've always been that type. I like to do things different, have different stuff than everybody else. I want to just be the different person, I guess. I don't know. Uh, well, that pup, it ended up getting run over when it was about a year old. And I talked to Jim, and he said, what you need to do is get you an older dog, one that already knows what it's doing and stuff. I said, well, really, back then I was a teenager, and I didn't really have the funds to pay for a good dog. And Jim said, I'll sell you Rosie. And I bought Rosie. Uh, she was directly out of Iceman. I bought her for $500. And that was my first real good coon dog that actually I could take out, and she'd go tree a coon every time I took her hunting. And I had her till she died, and I ended up, after that, I've had several walker dogs. I wasn't prejudiced to have anything, really. And what made me really get back on the English dogs now, and I've always liked English dogs. My cousin James, he hunted English dogs all his life, and I was just like, well, about the only one around here hunted English dogs was James and Daryl Burris and all them. So I grew up hunting with the Grand Lake English dogs, and Darren Bryant, a really good friend of mine, and all them guys had English dogs, and I decided I was going to get an English dog again after my old Walker dog died, and I've had English ever since.
So the hounds that you have now, do they go back way back to that Grand Lake stuff, or are you hunting a different line now?
Well, uh, the ones that I currently got really don't go back to the Grand Lake dogs that I grew up hunting with. Uh, I used to own a dog that was one of the better dogs I've ever owned. I called him Shaker. Now he did go back to the Grand Lake dogs on his mama's side, or on his daddy's side, pardon me, the Cracker Jack dog. Uh, Everybody knows about Cracker Jack, and he goes back to the Grand Lake Squall too. And I spent many nights hunting with Grand Lake Squall. Uh, she was probably one of the better dogs that I've hunted with as far as coon dogs go. I mean, you cut her loose, she's gonna go get struck, had a big mouth, gonna drive a track and have a coon when she parked. A lot of your Grand Lake dogs, they didn't get competition hunted really, but man, they was always big, good looking, big mouths, and sure enough, tree raccoons. Uh, I always like to try to keep something or have access to something that goes back to Grand Lake stuff to breed back into my dogs. And my hopes is the line of dogs I got right now, and I find the right female Grand Lake bred, that's where I want my next big stud dog to come out of myself.
Yeah. So after you got back into English, I know we had talked before. Um, what was your first hound that you really was competing with and doing some winning with after you kind of got back into that line of dogs you wanted to be in?
Well, my very first dog that I ever competition hunted with or any ever done anything with was a Walker female that I called Annie. She, knowing now what I do about coon hunting versus then, to me she is more of an ambush style dog. She did open on the ground, but she was kind of different. She wouldn't swim big water. It was like if water touched her belly, she'd just run down the banks and just pop up coons left and right. But I was real young, didn't know nothing. Uh, so I just thought, man, I just got a really nice dog. I didn't realize, hey, she just don't like water. She wasn't going to swim big water. But it kind of benefited me in the long run because I hunt a lot down on the river bottoms. and I drew out with guys that a lot of their dogs swam the river. Well, while their dogs swam the river, mine was treeing coons on this side of the river, and I done a lot of winning with her for me not knowing what I was doing really or anything, but I grew up with really good guys to competition hunt with, like Kenny Durbin. I couldn't tell you how many nights me and old Kenny Durbin drew out together. Uh, and that man taught me a lot as far as coon hunting went, competition hunting. Uh, Corey Males, we drew out so many times together. He was a blue tick guy, and he taught me a lot. There were several of them guys that just good coon hunters that they helped me as a young man. They wasn't out there trying to cut my throat, you know. And I've always been the type that I I want to help other people too. And one night I drew out with Kenny Durbin, and he had to cast one. His dog was treated across the river, and there was no way we was gonna make the deadline unless we just leave his dog out there, because we was gonna have to go get a boat to go get his dog, or drive way around up into Kansas to get over and get her. And Kenny said, "We'll just leave her. We'll go back to the clubhouse and come back and get her." And I told Kenny no. I said, "I'll just swim over there and get her." And he didn't want me to do it, but I'm kind of stubborn, bullheaded myself. I took my waders off, swam over, and got his dog so we could make the deadline, get back, and he didn't have to leave his dog out there all night. And still this day, if I see Kenny or something, he'll say, "You remember that night you swam the river to get my dog for me?" And I said, "Yeah, there's a lot of good memories with Kenny Durbin, Corey Mills, and all them guys growing up hunting with them. And that they taught me a lot when it come to competition hunting."
Yeah, whenever you have a good group of guys that you can hunt with, it usually develops a lot of memories, a lot of good stories, and a lot of camaraderie that's built into our sport automatically. Once you get around guys, we're competitors when we draw out on Friday night or Saturday night or during the week at a PKC hunt. But when it comes down to it, it seems to be the common theme with people that I talk to from anywhere in the country that I've talked to them, that when another coon hunter's in need, the other hunters always come to their need and help them out any way they can. So
Yes,
that seems to
yes,
be a common theme for sure.
yes, sir. I just was blessed with the group of guys that I grew up getting to hunt with, that really don't still get the competition hunt anymore. And you know, a lot of the guys, everybody wants to help everybody to a certain extent, but everybody's out there to win at the same time. To me, a lot of things are different now than they was then. Back then, there was a lot more hounds. You show up just at a local club hunt, it wasn't nothing to be 30, 40 dogs there. Now, you're lucky if you got 12 out of just a local club hunt.
Yeah. Do you think that's because of the more availability nowadays that we have to go to a hunt versus, I know years ago, of course, I'm from Alabama originally, and you only had a hunt come around every so often. And so when you show up at the club, there was tons of people there, tons of dogs, 30, 40, 50 dogs. And nowadays, like you said, 10, 12 dogs, that's a pretty good night, of hunting nowadays. Do you think it's because of the more availability of the hunts that we have available to us?
Well, in my honest opinion, uh, it's probably two different things. I I agree that there is too many hunts too close together, whereas they used to be a lot further apart. So people would drive further to come to a hunt because they didn't have nothing close to them that's close to thing. Well, now it ain't nothing. I can go just about any night of the week other than a Sunday within an hour of my house and go to a hunt. And It didn't used to be that way. So I do think that has an effect because somebody that used to drive 45 minutes to come to the Blue Jacket or Bonita hunt, they're not going to drive that far because they got one 10 minutes from their house. So that's part of it, in my opinion. And from what I see, I don't think there's near as many coon hunters as there used to be. Uh, a lot of your coon hunters back then, in my opinion, was yeah, they might go to a competition hunt, but they was actually hide hunters. Um, Hides used to be worth something. Now they ain't worth nothing. And they was more of a pleasure hunter, but they enjoyed getting to go hunt with other dogs and stuff. So they would go to hunts nearby when it wasn't season, just to have run their dog and you know be with other people and see other dogs go because they just enjoyed coon hunting. And now it's since it ain't worth nothing. I feel like a lot of your older coon hunters don't get they're not as involved in the coon hunting as they used to be.
Yeah, well, I can definitely see that, and one reason being you brought that up, I had a conversation last week with an older gentleman at my church, and he was asking me about coon hunting, and he said, "Well, why do you?" He said, "I used to coon hunt. Why do you even coon hunt anymore? The hides ain't worth anything." And he had no idea about like some of the competition hunts that we have now. Now, granted, I'm not in a position at this time, nor do I even have a dog that I would invest that much in to pay a, two or three, $4,000 entry fee on to take a chance at winning, some bigger money. But he had been out of the game for so long that he didn't even realize that you could go to these competition hunts and potentially win money. He was definitely in it just for the hides.
Yeah, yeah, because back then, I mean, really, I didn't even for a long time. I'll be honest with you, I didn't. I knew about PKC hunts as I got a little older, but I really didn't go to them because I've heard horror stories. Oh, this or mean dog here, or whatever. But now that I'm older and I've done it for a long time, I mean, I've been coon hunting since I was like 16 years old, and I'm 40 years old now. And you're drawing the same dogs pretty much at your local PKC hunt as you are at your local UKC hunt. Now, you go to these bigger level hunts, it's a different caliber dog for the most part. Now, where I live and the hunters that I got around me, my local hunts, these are I'm hunting against the dogs that are at your big level hunts. I mean, I got Cheyenne Cummins. I've hunted with Shaq before he was ever a night champion. I've hunted with Mafia. I've hunted with Emmy. I've all these high level dogs that's won at all levels, world champions, national champions. These are the dogs I've cut my teeth on competition hunting and had to hunt against and win some, lose some. It's that's a blessing in a disguise because I know that I've got a dog capable of beating, competing at that level. Whether I've got the money to go enter, I mean, I myself, I ain't saying that I can't afford to go to a $2,000 entry hunt, but for the most part, I'm not going to go. I've got a family, and I'm not going to go spend $2,000 gamble $2,000 to try to win a little right now. If I didn't have kids living at home still and stuff, that'd be different. But I don't want to take away from my kids just to go do something for my dogs or myself, you know.
Yeah,
But
well, I
I
definitely.
know I got dogs that can compete that because I've hunted against them all the time.
Yeah, I know over there where you're at, it is definitely a hotbed for some big name people with some really nice dogs, and um, as I've started venturing more and more into PKC. We're holding PKC hunts here at our club now, and I'm the hunt director. And I've been over to Oklahoma and hunted in a few of those PKC hunts there. And some of the names that you see in the magazines you read about on the internet, those are definitely the names that you're seeing at those local hunts there. And so if
Yeah.
you can definitely spend $30 and get your measuring stick out and see where you're at for sure, real quick.
Yes, sir. And I've got the availability that I even pleasure hunt with these guys. I'll call Lane Denny any night of the week, or sometimes he'll call me, and we'll get together and go hunting. And you know, a lot of times the places I hunt, if we're getting a lot of rain like we have been, I have to go hunt hills, and Lane Denny hunts hills, and we just kind of try to help each other out. And uh, Lane's been here recently. Lane's been helping me on uh, some things with one of my other dogs, just because I've had situation arise, and it was a training step that I couldn't do on my own. Not that I didn't know how, but 90% of the time I hunt by myself, and I've got these guys. I can call them up, and they'll be like, "Yeah, come on, we'll go hunting, and I'll help you." And that makes it really nice, you know. That even though that these guys are at the elite level that they are, uh, I can call any of them anytime. I can call Lane, Tyler, Dalton, Cheyenne, any of them, and they'll say, "Yeah, come on," and we'll go out pleasure hunting and work on things, and that makes it real nice.
Yeah, and not only working on things with dogs, but there may be some things as a handler yourself that they can give you some pointers with, or so and maybe you don't need pointers, but like myself, when I'm out there with other people pleasure hunting, I went with someone last night that competition hunts regular, and we were running stopwatches, and I was asking questions and just trying to better myself as a handler, because I know this guy, he's been in the runs of running PKC, UKC, and hunting in some bigger hunts than I've hunted in. So I try to take those opportunities to learn whatever I can learn from those situations, even when we're out pleasure hunting.
Oh, absolutely. I do that all the time. I could be pleasure hunting, me and a buddy or whatever. And I usually try to make my pleasure hunt like a competition hunt. For as it, I'll run in a stopwatch when I'm hunting, and I practice calling my dog in my head, because sometimes you make bad calls. Well, not every tree a dog ain't don't come on it the same, and every night you're hunting, you're learning. Whether that dog's seasoned or whether it's a beginner, you're learning that dog, because you're never in the same situation every night. So it's a learning game. Sometimes you make the right decision, sometimes you don't. Uh, I'm usually my dog's worst enemy, to be honest with you, because I make the wrong decisions.
Yeah,
But
well,
it,
I understand that for sure. I cost my little English female a cast win here about a month and a half ago because of nothing she done. It was because I waited too long to trigger.
yeah, been there. I've done that myself. Waited to tree dogs, or you know, tree my dog, and I didn't really need to, and it cost me the hunt, because I should have just kept my mouth shut. And I didn't really need it, but my dog was treed, and I just call it like it is, and that's just kind of how I was raised. I'm just gonna call my dog for what my dog does. If I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. Uh, but you can take it to the bank. If I win my cast, I did it fair. I didn't cheat. I didn't try to push my pencil or anything like that. It was done honest. If I lose, it was done honest. Uh, I've even kept myself out of the top 24 of the world by showing a guy's coon. Uh, and I probably got more compliments after that the next day than if I'd have won the world hunt. because all I had to do is keep my mouth shut. But that. I couldn't sleep at night knowing that dog honestly beat me, and I just kept my mouth shut and not showed him the coon. So I alerted them, said, "Hey, here's Coon," and that guy got through, and that was a really good thing. Matter of fact, me and him's become pretty good friends, I feel like, and I've got to hunt with him at a few other hunts, and that's Brett Stevens and his Lori dog.
Yeah, well, and Brett, actually, after I interviewed him, he said, I'm gonna tell you, there's a guy in Oklahoma that you need to talk to and interview, and that's Brandon Gaines. And I said, really? I see him on Facebook. He's got BNS English Kennels, and I see him on there with his rowdy dog, diesel dog, and look like pretty nice hounds. He said, I'm telling you, there ain't a more straighter up guy in coon hunting than Brandon Gaines. So I think that's a pretty good compliment. I don't remember how many years ago that was that situation happened, but Brett just told me this like I don't know a month and a half or 2 months ago. Whenever I reached out to
Yeah.
you about this, so definitely that's important in our sport. It's important to cherish the wins that we get, but it's also important to be a good loser too, because you're not going to
Yeah.
win them all. It ain't going to happen. There's some dogs that they get hot and it seems like they're just winning everything, left and right. Here a while back, Joe Manning, I mean he's just winning everything, but
Yeah.
they don't always stay that way. So you got to learn to be a
Yeah.
good loser, be a good sport, and do the right thing, and it'll come back to you.
Oh yes. And Joe Manning's one of the best out there, either side of the ball. Uh, he's a good winner. He's never going to be. He's always humble, and even if he loses, he's going to shake your hand, tell you congratulations. He's a really good guy. I've had the pleasure of hunting with him a few times. I was uh, one of the backup judges at the pro sport truck hunt when he won the pickup with Dominator, and that was an awesome cast. Uh, and every one of them guys after Joe won it, they was all shaking Joe's hand, congratulating each other. Uh, Everything that's what this sport's really all about. Uh, and that's why I love it. I mean, for the most part, you'll hear guys talking horror stories. Oh, I got cheated, and this guy did. I've done it. I've competition hunted since I was 17 years old, and I can count on one hand how many bad casts I've had where I've had trouble, and that's pretty good. I mean, most of the time everybody's helping everybody. You know,
Do,
and that's just my opinion at all levels. The higher level hunts, it's even you would think they'd be more cutthroat at a higher level than it is at a lower level, but it really is different. That higher level, you don't hardly ever have a question. You don't hardly ever have an argument or nothing. Uh, I've had more questions in $30 hunts than I have $100 to $500. I've never entered anything over 500, so I can't say the 2,000, 3,000. I've never entered any of those, so I can't say that 500 is the highest I've ever entered, and that was just here recently.
Yeah, and a lot of people say I got cheated on that cast, and this, that, and the other. But I always have to ask myself, do they really know what the rules were? And was the other handlers just using the rules to their advantage the best way possible?
Yeah,
And I think that's
it
a lot of it.
exactly, exactly. Uh, because I just learned a rule that and like I said, I've been a master of hounds even since I was 21. Uh, and I just learned a rule a couple of months ago that I knew nothing about, and I've talked to some people who knew it and some people didn't. And That's in a UKC hunt. If everybody in the cast agrees a dog is in a hole, you don't have to tree your dog. You can just go in there and score the dog. If it is in a hole and you don't tree it, you just get your strike points scored. You don't have to tree that dog in a hole. And I didn't know that. it kind of costed me a cast win at a tournament of champions. I wished I'd have known that, and I wouldn't have treated my dog because he had a coon in a hole and ended up running it out of there, and it cost me getting a minus and cost me a cast win. But in the end, it worked out great because the guy that ended up winning our cast, he doubled up and got through, and Emilio Gavin, and he's a good dude too, and I've coon hunted with him for years, so I was tickled to death for him, even though I didn't win my cast. I didn't win my cast the second night, so I probably wouldn't have got through even off my one cast win on Friday night. So it worked out. Everything, the way I look at things, God has a plan for everything, and everything happened for a reason. So I think I didn't win that cast because God knew I wasn't going to win my cast the next night, and the way I look at it, you just give him thanks whether you win, lose, draw. It don't matter because there's a bigger picture. It's not just that night. You got to look at the bigger picture on everything.
Yeah, I agree 100% there. He definitely has a plan, and even though sometimes we don't understand it, it usually works out for our better too. And something else there, just like you said, even though you didn't win that, you were happy for the guy that did win it. And I think that's something that I've seen more and more of. Used to, there was like these little cliques of guys that kind of, always kind of hung together. And more it seems like, um, you're out there with a cast of guys, and those three lose and you win, and those guys quit becoming your competitor and start becoming like your cheerleader, pulling for you, to get to that
Yeah,
next level. I think that's a really great thing in our sport. That we can be such competitors and then turn around and also cheer that person on.
yeah, and that's what it takes. I mean, in my opinion, we're all we're all there to help each other. Uh, there's there is a lot of jealousy in coon hunting, but it's usually more in the same breed. And like I said, down here, I'm in a different breed than what most everybody here hunts. So, but even if they was hunting the same breed as me, I'm gonna cheer them on either way if I don't get through because I'm pulling for my breed. I'm pulling for my friends, and vice versa. They do the same for me. Uh, all them guys that I call when I need help or whatever, they know they can call me anytime, and middle of the night or whatever, and I'll come do best I can to help them out.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. So, before we get too far off trail here, back to your English dogs. Me and you had a conversation, and I don't know that anybody knows this other than me and you. That I come over and I've got a little male dog here out of some of your dogs. I come over and picked up. Me and you stood around and talked for a little while. And you was
Yes,
telling me
sir.
about Jill, this dog you had. Won't you tell us a little bit about Jill and kind of tell us that whole story that me and you talked about there? Because I think that just embodies what I know as coon hunters, their generosity, their camaraderie, taking care of one another. I think that's just a great story. Hey guys, this is Jason over at the Coonhound Collective podcast. Is your dog box starting to get wore? Maybe it's starting to get a little cracked like mine is. Maybe you've just been thinking about it's time to upgrade to a new box, but you've asked your buddies and you're just not real sure what direction to go in. Well, let me help you out here. Go check my friends out at CZ Welding and Fabrication, Custom Dog Boxes and Aluminum Products on Facebook. You can check out all their custom work they do there and their designs that they do. If you don't see something that you don't exactly like there, reach out to Nathan at 540-810-5300 5439, 540-810-5439, or send him a message through the Facebook page. I bet he can fix you up. Don't wait till fall to get that new dog box. Go ahead, get that dog box now. Get you something looking good in the back of your truck that you can be proud of and that you can haul your dog around in comfort. Check my friends out at CZ Welding and Fabrication. You won't go wrong. Dog boxes built by hunters for hunters. Get yours today. CZ Welding and Fabrication.
All right. Well, the whole way Jill really come about was I drove down and bought a dog off Curtis Daughtry, which is good friends with Brett Stevens. That was before I ever knew who Brett was, and I didn't even really know Curtis. A lot of them call him Chops. And I bought this young male dog, which ended up, I found out later when I drew out with Brad at World Hunt, that was literally my brother to Lori. Well, of course, he was like 10, 15 months old when I bought him. And I brought him down here, and he's sure enough tree coons. And but he just, me and him didn't click. He tree coons, and I let my boy hunt him a little bit and stuff, and he just wasn't for me. And so I decided I was going to sell him. Where there was an older gentleman in Coffeyville, Kansas. I cannot remember his name. He was looking for one. It was about that style of dog, and he come down. We went hunting. He liked what he seen, and to be honest with you, I don't even remember what I had him priced at. It wasn't ridiculous, but older gentleman didn't have that much money on him, and he asked me if he paid me this much, if I would take this female in on trade. She was probably 9, 10 months old, if I remember correctly. She was under a year old, and asked if I'd be interested in her. Well, she was UKC Performance, Super Stakes, and everything, and I said, yeah, I'd do that, because in what was left owed to me, I couldn't have raised the pup to that level and had her paid up for that amount of money. So I did it. Well, the guy met me the next day on my lunch break. I drove up there and I picked that female up from him, and we exchanged dogs and paperwork and stuff. And so she stayed with me at work all day. On my way home, then I had my coon light in my truck, or one of my boys left their coon light in my truck, and I was heading home, and it was dark, and I decided I was going to drive back roads. And I seen a coon cross the road, and I decided I cut her loose, see what she'd do. And she ran in there and got treed, and I went and grabbed that light, was going to go in there and get her, and I'll be dang if the light wasn't dead. So I had to use my cell phone just to go in there. Whether she had the coon or not, I couldn't tell you, because all I had was my cell phone flashlight. I just got my dog and went to the house. And so I was real excited about her. And because I didn't have a dog on my place other than my cousin had to let me hunt one of his English dogs out of Crystal and Timber Tiger. I had her and was hunting her for him and putting her in a few hunts. And that was James Chandler's Teddy dog. So I get Jill. I end up naming her Jill, and I get her home, and the very next night I was like, I'm gonna take Jill and Teddy hunting. So me and my two boys, we load up and go down on the river. Went hunting on some property I got over there to hunt. And we cut loose, and Teddy got in there and got treed, and we started heading in there to her. Next thing we know, we hear Jill in there treeing with her. And got in there, and they had a coon. Boy, I was just so excited. It was during kill season, and I knocked that coon out to them. And I said, boys, we'll just call the night early. It was during the week. They had school next day, and I had to go to work. So we went back home. Well, the next night, I decided I was going to go hunting. And I took Teddy and Jill again, and I went by myself and turned loose. And Jill goes in there and just falls treed. and never said nothing on the ground. Jill falls treed. Well, Teddy was in there with her. I could tell by my tracking unit, but never was really treeing right. And I get in there, and it was a den tree, but the coon was on the outside just laid up in a ball asleep. And I thought, there ain't no way this pup just treated a layup coon on this night champion female, you know, that the Teddy dog's a pretty nice dog. I said, there ain't no way. We recut off that, and Jill ended up split treed from Teddy, and they both had coons, and I went home. I was like, I'm going to end it on a good note, and I went to the house. And my dad used to coon hunt with me as a kid all the time, and I called my dad. I was telling him about Jill. I was like, Dad, you ain't going to believe this. This little female's for real, and no more hunting than she's ever had or anything. I said, she's just a natural. And my dad, he hadn't been coon hunting in quite a while at that time. And the next night, he's like, well, come pick me up, and I want to go see her go. And my dad's always hunted walker dogs, and I went and picked him up. And the next night, we took Jill and Teddy and cut loose, and Jill treated a coon on Teddy again, and got in there, and it was just balled up in the first fork of the tree, just sleeping. And we squalled and everything. That coon never would look at us. He just first fork tree. I was like, my dad's like, she just treated that. It was just lay up coon, son. I was like, that's what I've been thinking she did the other night, but I was like, I didn't really believe it, you know. And we treated like 2 or 3 coons that night, and she looked real good. And my dad said, I'm not a real big fan of English dogs. He said, but I'd own her. And so I knew I had something pretty special with Jill. And I ended up hunting Teddy for a little while longer, and then I knew Jill needed to be hunted by herself, so I ended up giving James's dog back because I had something to hunt now, and I was really hunting her quite a bit by herself and put her in several hunts. Well, back when I was hunting her in the hunts, you had to have a first place win and 100 points or whatever. And it took me a while to make her a night champion because I had like 4 or 5 seconds on her I think I had 4 thirds and 2 fourths before I ever got my first place win. And I don't know, I just never could get that first place. I come in one night with 850 plus and still didn't. I just knew I had first place and end up with second. You know, the night I did finish her to a night champion, she only had 75 plus, and that was what I got my first place win with. But later on down the road, I made her a night champion, and I was going through a rough spell in my life, and Darren, really good friend of mine, and to this day, I still say he's one of my best friends. He hunted with Jill a lot. He told me several times, he said, Brandon, if you ever decide you want to sell her, I want first chance at her. I said, if I ever decide to sell her, I'll let you know. I said, but I don't ever want to sell her. Well, then I was going through a rough time in my life and was going to have to get my own place because separation and, you know, just things that happen. So I didn't really have the money to go get a place right then and there. I called Darren and told Darren, said, I'm going to have to sell Jill. I don't want to, but I'm going to have to. And he said, what do you want for? And I told him, he said, well, meet me up here at the gas station. I'm getting ready to go hunting, and I'll take her. I said, okay. So Darren picked her up from me. And I'll be honest with you, I've owned quite a few dogs. I've never really bonded with a dog until I got Jill. I've never cried over a dog, and I'm not a crying type of person. I'm not bred that way, I guess, but I ain't gonna lie, I shed a tear when I sold her and loaded her in Darren's dog box. And Darren knew what Jill meant to me. And Darren took her hunting that night and with his Rilo dog, and they treat some coons, but he had seen what Jill does, and he knew she wasn't performing like she normally did, but he figured it's because I wasn't there. They hunted her a few more times, and it just she wasn't the same dog. Darren called me a couple times, and I remember one time he called me. He said, "Hey, Brandon, I got a question." He said, "I already know the answers, but it's a dumb question, but I'm gonna ask you anyway." I said, "All right." He said, "Have you ever hunted Jill by herself?" I said, 90% of the time. He said, "Well, I knew that, but she ain't going to hunt." And I was like, I don't, I don't get it. Well, we end up figuring out that she's just one person dog. She just wouldn't hunt for nobody but me, really. And Darren called me and said, "Brandon, I'm gonna give you Jill, sell Jill back to you." I said, "Darren, I don't got the money." And he said, "I didn't say nothing about the money." He said, "You can pay me when you get the money." He said, "I felt bad when I got her because I know you didn't want to sell her, uh, but I knew you needed the money to get out of the situation." He said, "I know you're good for it. When you get the money, you just pay me." I said, "Darren, I don't know when I'll have the money." He said, "That's fine. I felt like I took one of your kids when I took Jill anyway." So I went and picked Jill back up, and me and Darren hunted together still and everything. And Jill was just back to her old self. When she was back with me, she was just her old self again. And it went on. It was I want to say it was 2 years before I ever got Darren paid. Not one time did Darren ever call me and say, "Hey, what about that money?" Never asked me about it, nothing. There were several times I said, "Hey, Darren, I ain't forgot you." He said, "I ain't worried about it." And he just never brought it up. Well, out of the blue, I ended up getting the money. I called Darren and said, "Hey, are you at home?" He said, "No, he's out delivering dog food." He said, "Why, what's up?" And I said, "I got your money." I said, "Do you want me to take it to your house?" He said, "No, I'll just come by and get it. And I'll call you later." I said, "All right." Well, I met up with him the next day and gave him his money. But never one time did that man ever ask me about that money or question when I was going to get him paid or nothing. And that just showed me how good a friend he really was. I mean, he was there to help me when I needed it the most, and never did question it. And uh, Darren to this day probably don't even understand what that meant to me, that he did what he did, because he didn't have to do that at all. He could have sold Jill to somebody else and got his money back that way, but he was a good enough friend, knew what that dog meant to me, and he did what he did, and that was just a big thing to me. And it kind of, all honesty, set the page for what I've got now. I mean, the dogs I got now all go back to Jill, and she's kind of my measuring stick for all my dogs because she's the best dog I've ever had of my own on the end of the lead, in my opinion. And I've had a lot of dogs, and I've had some nice ones, and I've had some bad ones, but she's what I like the most. And Darren, I couldn't ever thank Darren enough to this day for doing what he did, because I knew he didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
kind of how the whole deal with Jill went down.
yeah, I appreciate you telling that because, you know, maybe not in our circles, but, a lot of people say, oh, that's just them old coon hunters out there, at night, doing whatever. And they don't, they don't really understand what goes on, and they don't understand almost the brotherhood, so to speak, that takes place. And for him, it wasn't about the money. It was about the dog being back in the hands that she needed to be in. And
Yeah.
my hat's definitely off to people like that. And like I said, I don't know, I've interviewed several people, and it's just story after story, of stuff like that. And it's not from one area, north, south, east, west. It don't matter. It's just, yeah, it's just the way the people are that are in this sport. They're more looking to, everybody wants to make a dollar here or there, but they're looking to help their fellow coon hunter out first. For the most
Yeah.
part, you do have a few here or there, but for the most part, they're like your friend Darren there. They're looking to help somebody out first.
Yeah.
So
It,
from Jill, she had a litter of puppies, and that's where Rowdy come from. Is that right?
yes, sir. Uh,
So tell us about Rowdy, and then we'll move right on into to Diesel and some of the rest of them.
all right. Well, uh, I had Jill. I made her a night champion, and I knew eventually I was going to want to breed her, and I was going over stud dogs, looking at pedigrees, what should I breed to, and hunted with several dogs out of different dogs, and to me, it's not about the dog you're breeding; it's about what they're throwing. So I always like to hunt with what he was throwing, and I'd looked at the JR dog, and I like the JR line of dogs. I've hunted with a bunch of them, but at that time, money wise and stuff, wasn't going to be able to get her down there and breed her to JR. And I ended up, a good friend of mine, John Kirby, and had the Rocky Runs Bad News Bow Dog down there at his place, which Terry Goforth and them had. And he placed fourth in the world. I want to say in 2011. I could be wrong on that, but I know he placed fourth in the world and done a bunch of winning. Terry and them did with Obo, and I liked the way he was bred. And John Kirby, good friend of mine, had him down there at his place. I was like, man, if him and Terry will be willing to breed Jill, I said that'd be my best bet because she's right here in my back door, and or he's right here in my back door. So I got a hold of John and said, hey, would you guys be interested in breeding the Jill? And he said, oh, I'd absolutely be interested. Let me talk to Terry and see what we can work out. And we ended up getting it all worked out. And when she come in, I took her down there and bred her to Bo. And she had 9 puppies. And probably, I don't know if it was by accident or what, the Bo dog was reproducing. Jill was kind of a shot in the dark. She never had a litter of pups, but I knew Bo was reproducing. I hunted with a lot of pups out of him. I liked what I seen, so I bred her. She had 9 puppies. They was 4.5 weeks old. Uh, I was a single dad. Had my 2 boys lived with me, and pups was 4.5 weeks old. I was gonna start them on mush. Went out there and took Jill out, and she was her normal self. I tied her up and fed her, and then fed my puppies. And my dog pens where I lived at the time was probably 100 yards from my house. Well, I fed them. I was going to go in the house and get a drink or something, and then go put Jill back up with her pups. Well, I was on my boys. They was little, and they was just out there running around the yard playing. And I was almost back to my door, and my youngest boy, Lane, hollered at me. He said, Dad, what's wrong with Jill? Um, I turned around, and I could tell she had stood up, like she had fell down. She had stood up, and she kind of stumbled around and fell. And it's I took off running out there. I knew something was bad, and by the time I got out there, she was already dead. To this day, I don't know if she had a heart attack, stroke. I don't know what happened to her. But 2 weeks prior to when she passed away, uh, I had took her to the vet for a checkup because all her shots and stuff was due, and had a clean bill of health on her. I have no idea what happened. But I had 9 puppies, 4.5 weeks old, out of her that was still alive and didn't know what to do. So I called my cousin James and told him what happened, and said, "How am I going to raise these pups? I ain't got time to bottle feed all of them." And he said, "Just put milk replacer and soak their dog food in it and feed it to them and see how they get along from there. If they seem to be doing good, then that's just what I do until they got big enough to eat dog food." And that's what I did. And luckily, I didn't ever have no issues. I raised all 9 pups, and probably one of the best crosses that I know that I've made. Uh, but probably in the top 10 crosses in the English breed, in my opinion, far as winning dogs out there. I mean, she had 9 puppies, 6 of them titled. One of them is a bear dog, so it didn't get titled, and one of them is a old pleasure hunter's got. One of them, she just was mediocre, to be honest with you. But the rest of them, you got Terry Goforth has the snag dog. He's Grand Night champion. You got Willow Creek Copperhead that John Anderson and Keelan have. Then you got my Rowdy dog. He's won all over at all levels. Uh, then you got Jim Ridge has a littermate sister that named Trick, and there's a Rio dog. He was a night champion before he got killed, and was winning regularly, and several others. There's one up in Wisconsin that just needs anything to be a night champion, but that young man ended up having a baby and kind of just hadn't been hunting the hunts like he used to. And just really nice cross. I couldn't ask for a better cross. And Rowdy, he's been on my place. I picked Rowdy the day he was born. I was like, that's the pup. That's the one I'm keeping. And what's odd about that is Jill had 2 blue pups. She had a male and a female pup that was blue in her litter. And I love English dogs. I like a red tick English dog, but I've always just wanted a tricolor English dog that are bred and raised. And I ended up picking Rowdy day one. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because he's the only one that had a spot on his head, or what it was, but he was the one. I seen him and said, that's the one, and he's been on my place ever since, and that's where he'll stay. And I couldn't ask for more of a dog to be like his mama than what Rowdy is. I mean, he hunts like his mama did. He acts like his mama did. He's kind of a one-man dog, and he just, his mama reincarnated, I guess, and I feel blessed to have him, and I've enjoyed him over the years and still enjoy him. He's still just a good coon dog.
So, what all have you won with Rowdy?
Oh, man. I, so many hunts over the years I put him in. He just turned 6 in February. Uh, I've won high scoring dog at Redbone Days. I've high scoring dog at Zone 4 the year that I went to the top 100. Multiple time world qualifier. There's a couple. I only got to hunt him in zones twice. The second year I hunted him in zones, he had come down with Arlichia and really wasn't performing at his level that he normally does. I won high scoring dog at the Blue Tick Grand Reunion in Iowa. Uh, Black and tan sectionals, English sectional kings of hunts. He's had cast wins at English days. He's had cast wins at Winter Classics. Uh, he was in the Final Four of Seneca had a Pro Classic, uh, and that was actually when I found out the day or the Monday after that hunt was when I found out he had Arlikia. And even with him having Arlikia, I made the Final Four, and it ended up the late round. I was winning the late round, and uh, his Arlikia kind of flaring up. He kind of shut down on me and cost me a hunt. I kind of blame it on Tyler Compton, but he's a buddy of mine. But he pulled a slick one on me that night. I still give him a hard time about it, but at the same time, my dog shouldn't have been where he was at, and it cost me the hunt. I went from first place to last place because I ended up getting scratched, but it is what it is. But and them guys I drew out, I had Tyler Compton was hunting Jenna, which is platinum champion, won all over. We had Shaq, which is a national Grand Night champion, one everybody knows about Shaq. And then I had Emmy, she's world champion, two-time world champion, and then I have Rowdy. Them was the Final Four of that Pro Classic hunt, and to lose to any of those three dogs ain't. I mean, there's no shame in that at all. To know that I was winning that cast with those level of dogs, if my dog just wouldn't have quit me because he was just shot in the butt from the Arlikia, just to know that I could have won it, I was happy. But it kind of sucked money wise what I went from winning this to from this, you know. And there was only like 17 minutes left in the hunt when we had to put the time on him, and it was just one of those deals, and ain't nothing I can do to change it, but it is what it is. I had a good time that night, and I was proud of Rowdy. He dominated the early round, and then was doing really good the late round, and then it just kind of petered out on me. Uh, that's been Rowdy's kind of his forte has always been he was real fast, and he was always a low end strike dog, but man, he was treating coons that dogs didn't even know was around, and accurate. And I might treat zones. Them guys down there when I was high scoring dogs at zones, them guys I drew out with down there, every one of them can tell you, I treat 2 or 3 coons that was 60 yards or less from when I cut him, just wham bam. Other dogs just run past him, and he was treeing them. I was high scoring dog Friday night. Saturday night, I wasn't even wanting to win my cast because I was like, I just want to get through zones. I want the least amount of minus as possible or whatever. And I would always wait to tree my dog because I was see if anything come in there because I didn't want first tree take a chance of getting minus. I ended up having first tree all night because I was by myself. The next to last coon that Rowdy treed that night, we had walked off. Rowdy had got treed, and another dog got treed, and then 2 others got treed over here, and we was all within a 200 yards circle. All dogs had coons. We walk off that and recut, and Rowdy didn't go 20 yards in front of us and like just trees. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Why are you doing this right now? And other dogs just kept trucking down the creek. And 10 seconds of cutting him, I put a stationary on him because I was judging. And all the guys in the cast had hunted Rowdy a bunch. They're like, why are you putting stationary on him? I said, I'm going to see if one of you guys' dogs come back to tree with him so I can take the second tree. Because I could literally see the tree he was on, and I was like, I figured he was just all excited. And long story short, their dogs went down about 300, got treed, and everybody trees dogs, and I tie Rowdy up. I said, why don't we just go down there and score them, and then we'll come back and we can score Rowdy and go to the truck and we'll move. Or we can score Rowdy and I'll lead to you guys dogs and score you, however you guys want to do it. But that way we have all dogs handled, and they was like, yeah, let's do that. So we went down those, treed on a little persimmon tree, ended up being slick. We walked back over, Rowdy had a coon in less than 10 seconds of cutting him. And we went to another spot and turned loose, and I treated another coon, and their dogs treated a den, and one dog ended up getting scratched because he treated a possum. But he's won everywhere. Every state I've hauled him to, whether I made it's a bigger level hunts where I made it in the top 10 or not, he's won his casts at every state I've took him. I've won multiple legacy hunts with him. I won the Ed Abel. Every year they do an Ed Abel hunt down there at Claremore. Seneca Club helps puts it on and stuff. I won it last year with Rowdy, and it was kind of just a last minute deal. I hadn't even been hunting Rowdy. They had that hunt. I told my wife, I think I'm going to go down there and hunt that hunt. She's like, what are you going to hunt? Because I had Diesel and Rowdy. I said, I don't know. I said, I ain't hunted Rowdy in a while. I said, but I've been on a roll with him at them legacy hunts, so I don't know. She's like, why don't you flip a coin and see who you take? And I did, and I flipped the coin, and I took Rowdy down there and ended up winning the whole thing. And just lucky. It is a lucky deal. Rowdy looked good early. He looked good late. But at the same time, I try to be very humble. I'm just blessed with the dogs that I do got, the people that's helped me along the way to do what I have done, and the competition of people that I get to hunt with, helping each other and all that. It's just a blessing all in itself. Because without all that, everything all into play, I couldn't have done what I have done.
Yeah, for sure. And he's definitely done some accomplishments, and I'm glad you told that little part there. You told me about that Final Four, and it was a tough cast, but it was pretty funny too. You and Tyler.
Oh
But
yeah. Oh, Tyler, that was a deal. Tyler, man, I still give him a hard time, but Rowdy is never really, he's a one-man type dog, but I don't know what it is about Tyler, but Rowdy loves Tyler, and Tyler used that to his advantage because Rowdy knew better than be standing by me, so he just stood over there with Tyler, and it was just one of those deals.
yeah. So how many puppies do you know how many puppies Rowdy's got on the ground now?
Right now, Rowdy has 105 pups on the ground. I've kind of, I ain't bred any more females since I've really hit my 100 mark, but he has 105. I ain't going to say that I'm done breeding him, but I'm going to be even more selective on what I breed than what I have been. Everything I bred, none of them's just been brood females. I don't breed just brood females. If I wouldn't want a pup out of it myself, I don't really wouldn't want to breed it. Some guys are different, and I've probably upset people by turning them down or whatever, and it ain't never been nothing about their dog ain't good enough to be bred to my dog, because I don't look at it that way, because everybody has their own opinion on the type of dog. I'm a little different than most stud dog guys. If somebody calls me, usually about the first thing I'm asking them is, what are you looking for out of the stud? What kind of traits are you looking for? Because with as many pups that I got on the ground right now, which ain't a lot, I mean, honestly, I know what traits Rowdy's throwing. In my opinion, I know the majority of what he's throwing, because I've bred several females, and these are the common traits I see out of all these pups out of different females. So to me, that's the traits that Rowdy's passing, if it's a common trait in all the pups. Uh, so if they tell me this is what they're looking for, and Rowdy don't fit that bill, and if I know a stud out there that does fit that bill, I'm going to point them in the right direction, because I'm not just in this stuff. I'm not trying to make no money off my coon. This is just a passion that I have. I love the English breed, and I want to see it get better than what it is. Uh, so I try to point everybody in the right direction, and I don't believe in putting another man's dog down, because it ain't my dog to be putting down. Uh, there might be things that some do that I don't agree with the way they go about doing it, but that ain't putting the dog down. That's more the owner. I don't even try to put them down. I just think they ought to think about how they go about doing things sometimes. But to each their own. Everybody has their own way of doing things, and I guess sometimes you just gotta let bygones be bygones and let them do their thing, because there ain't nobody telling me how to do my thing.
Yeah. So do you know the breakdown as far as titled pups out of Rowdy by chance? Hey guys, this is Jason over at the Coonhound Collective podcast. I'm here today to tell you about one of our sponsors, Conky's Outdoors. Whether you need a few dog collars or the whole setup, they can fix you up. They have a wide range of products from hound hunting to fishing. My friends over at Conky's Outdoors can help you out. You can order online at conkysoutdoors.com. Call them at 904-692-1568, 904-692-1568, or if you're in the Hastings, Florida area, go by and see them. Again, that's at conkysoutdoors.com, because we support people who support our way of life.
Well, right now there's a there's a Grand Night female out of the first litter that I bred Rowdy. There's a Grand Night female, and then I've got a Night Champion dog. He just needs one more to be grand out of Rowdy. There's another female that I did own that I just recently sold. She's got 2 wins towards Night Champion. There's I want to say 3 pups that's got wins on them towards Night Champion. All honesty, Rowdy's oldest litter is 2 years old, coming 3. And a lot of them, a lot of people think that these dogs may be Night Champion by the time they're a year old, or Grand Nighted by the time they're a year old. A lot of the guys I've got pups in their hands ain't been pushing them in the hunts yet. They actually, in my opinion, in the way I look at it, they are trying to go about it the right way and waited till the dog was actually ready for the hunts, instead of going and getting lucky. And I think by the end of this year, you'll probably see Rowdy on the top 10 reproducers list, and it'll just grow from there, because I know there's other ones that's getting ready to start hitting the hunts that are really nice. I've hunted with several young dogs out of him, out of different crosses, that they can go win right now in a hunt, but winning a hunt and being ready for the hunts is 2 different things.
Yeah, I agree.
Just in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, I heard John Strickland kind of say the same thing about Big Country when he first got him and started messing with him. So, yeah, I think you need to make sure the dog is mature and ready to be out there
Yeah.
competing. Just because they can tree raccoons, that don't mean that they're ready to be out there.
Yeah, there's a lot, in my opinion, there's a lot of them out there that get pushed way too hard at way too young, and then you'll hear about them and they're a year or 2 old, and then after that they just vanish. You don't hear nothing of them, and I think it's because they just petered out. They went backwards instead of forwards.
Yeah.
Uh,
Before we I want to ask you about Diesel and some of the traits that you're seeing that Rowdy is throwing. But before um, we move to that, do you think in the recent years that social media, Facebook in general, has created more jealousy in the different breeds?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because, like I said earlier, everybody has their own way of doing things. Uh, some people are good talkers. Some people don't talk. Uh, I'm I'm kind of in between. I'm not gonna blow my dog up. Uh, if you want to see my dog go any night of the week, any conditions, come up, go hunting. He's either going to look good or he's going to look bad, and that's just all there is to it. I'm not going to say my dogs walk on water, but I can take my dogs out any night of the week, any conditions, just about, and most every time I'm on tree coons. Uh, are they going to look like world beaters every night? Absolutely not. But I wouldn't own them if they wasn't consistently treeing raccoons when I go hunting. They better have way more good nights than they have bad nights. They all gonna have bad nights. I don't care what dog it is. They better have way more good nights than bad nights if they're gonna stay on my place.
Yeah, I definitely understand that for sure. Okay, so moving on to Diesel, tell us a little bit about Diesel and tell us the traits that you're seeing passed down from Rowdy into dogs like Diesel.
Okay. Uh, well, Diesel come about. I was personally looking for females because in my opinion, there's only been one real big stud dog in the Oklahoma area that I know everybody knows about, and that's Cabin Creek Rowdy that David Menson had. And he didn't breed as many dogs as his little mate brother Hucklebuck and stuff did, but a lot of our problem is our location where we're at, uh, and where all the majority of our breed is. So, with that being said, I went about buying nice females or leasing nice females to breed to Rowdy because I wanted to know what I was breeding to and things to that nature. So I talked to John Kirby, buddy of mine, that had the bow dog and helped me produce Rowdy. I called him and we visited, and he had a female there. I liked the way she was bred. Uh, she's silver tone bred on the top side and went back to rat poison on her bottom side, and they had bred her to Cracker Jack, and she reproduced and had nice pups, and I've hunted with some of those pups. I owned one of them there for a little while after she was older, because I ended up getting her to breed to Rowdy as well. But I leased that Annie dog from John and bred her to Rowdy, and it everything went good till she was getting ready to have pups, and she started having trouble. I called John and told him, it's like, I'm gonna have to take your dog in to have a C-section. She's having trouble. It's kind of a scary deal. We ended up raising that litter of pups in the house, kept Annie in the house and everything. And man, you can't ask for a better natured dog or anything like that. She's a coon terrier. We kept her in the house, and a lot of coon dogs you keep in the house, they're gonna tear everything up and things like that. But she wasn't. She was a really good dog. I raised them pups. Uh, she had 3 males and 1 female, and John was actually going to get the female uh, for his daughter Kinley, because actually, to be honest with you, Annie is Kinley's dog, his daughter's, and anyway, that was what we was going to do for the let me have her. He was going to take that female pup, and which was perfectly fine with me. And then we had an accident happen. The female pup ended up getting killed, and I told John, I said, if you want one of these males, or I can pay you to do whatever to make it right. And John said he wasn't worried about it. Everything, basically the same thing. Everything happens for a reason. He just thankful his, Annie was good and everything. Well, I end up, Diesel was my pick of the litter, and I kept him. We've pushed that dog. I started him at a young age, but I didn't push him hard. I took him hunting first time. He was like 5 months old. He just went and done what the other dogs did. And when he was 6 months old, I decided, hey, we'd had a bunch of rain. All the creeks was out of their banks. And I was like, there ain't no way I'm taking Rowdy. He'll get me in a pickle. I'm going to just take Diesel out and drive him around. And that's what I did, and dumping on cattle. I was looking, hope to see a coon on a cattle feeder or something, and never did. Well, I ended up cutting him loose on this one cattle feeder that I couldn't see. And he got down there and ended up striking, got treed, and I went there to him. And I thought, I left the gun in the truck because I thought, there ain't no way in the world that he's got a coon treed, because he didn't even really know what one was. I went in there, and I'll be dang if he didn't have a coon. So then I tied him up, went back to the truck, and rolled that coon out to him. And I knew it was a big coon when I seen it, so I wanted it to be dead. I shot it in the head. Well, it hits the ground, and I've got a hold of this coon. I'm shaking it around, and all of a sudden it come alive. I got a 6-month-old puppy and a 20-plus pound boar coon, bobtail boar coon, whooped the fire out of my 6-month-old puppy. And I thought, oh my God, I just ruined my dog. And this dog normally, how a pup gets bit, they back off and just start barking at them. Diesel didn't do that. He never let up. I was trying to get the coon off him and him off the coon, and it wasn't working. For long, he had that coon killed. And I thought, my Lord, I hope I didn't just ruin this pup. And I went to hunting him, and he just went to treating coons after that. I would only hunt him about once or twice a week, never pushed him real hard. And then he just went from there. Me and him's had a couple falling outs along the way, because I hunted him so much by himself. The only dog he'd ever been with other than by himself was his daddy. And a real good friend of mine, JR, kept me from killing Diesel when he was like 7, 8 months old. And JR had hunted with me all the time, hunted with Diesel, and seen him tree coons by himself and knew what the pup was. And we went hunting together one night, and he cut his dogs and I cut him, and Diesel wouldn't go hunting. And it made me mad. And I got a little rough, and I blew Diesel up. We got back to the truck. I said, take the truck, pull up the road. And he's like, why, what for? I said, I'm killing this dog. He ain't gonna work. And long story short, he said, I don't know. I don't think I can whoop you. He said, but I ain't letting you kill that dog. I said, because he's too nice. You ain't doing that. And thank God JR was with me that night, because he stopped me from making a big mistake. And I couldn't thank him enough for doing what he did. And because the end product of what I got now was from all them long nights and some of them stressful nights. I can only say that's happened twice that I know of, and I've main one that's ever hunted Diesel. But Diesel's done his fair share of winning in what little bit of hunts he's been put in. A lot of people will tell you that they like Diesel better than they do Rowdy, the people that's hunted with Diesel and Rowdy, and I'm here to tell you, I own both of them, raised both of them, trained both of them. Diesel's not a better dog than Rowdy right now. but I like him better than Rowdy. Uh, the thing about the Rowdy pups that I'm seeing that's a common denominator in every female I've bred is uh, a lot of people tell me, man, these pups are so smart. They're just got a lot of intelligence. Um, Most every cross I made, they've got big mouths. A lot of them start real early, and I know that a lot of your stud dogs say the same thing. Uh, they start real early. They're gamey, uh, which I like a gamey pup myself. Um, and they have a lot of natural ability. That Grand Night female, David Higby owns up by Kansas City. Uh, she pretty much was taught by herself. I mean, he didn't hunt her with other dogs to get her going and stuff. But that man right there, he done it right with her. He never pushed her real hard, let her mature, done it, and has won almost everything he puts her in. I personally got to see her go, and she's nice. A lot of Rowdy's pups are naturally very independent. Um, they Another thing real common that I see that you don't see in a lot of pups out of stud dogs is their layup. They like to run with their heads in the air. With Rowdy, Rowdy opens on the ground. A lot of people think Rowdy don't bark on the ground. They think he just goes in there and falls treed. And Rowdy's not. He does open on the ground. He's got a beautiful ball mouth on the ground, uh, but he just don't hardly ever run tracks. Because if there's any kind of wind blowing, oh, just a little breeze. I've watched Rowdy in these pecan bottoms. He runs with his head in the air, wins a coon. It might be 300 yards down. He'll be running a straight line and then break right and go 300 yards, just bam, fall street. Uh, he just winded that coon. Uh, Sometimes he'll be going along and he'll just make a circle, and then that circle get a little littler, and bam, he's treed. You go in there, that coon will be balled up asleep. You just laid that coon up. But if it's just dead calm, there ain't no wind where he can try to wind a coon. He puts his head down and he actually runs track. Uh, a lot of guys have recently started seeing this out of Rowdy that I've actually went hunting. They're like, man, I ain't heard Rowdy open that much on the ground ever. I was like, well, you ain't hunted with him as much as I have. I know the dog opens, but he just normally don't, because normally you got some kind of breeze, and that dog is probably smarter than a lot of people give him credit for, because if I cut him this way and the wind's out the other way, he's going to go out there and wheel around. He might be out of your sight when he does it, but he's going to hunt into the wind every time. And sometimes dogs got more sense than we do. So I've had to learn over the years. It took me like 3 years to figure out that's what Rowdy was doing. So then after I figured that out, I had to, every time I went hunting, I had to check the wind, see what the wind was doing to get him to hunt the places I actually wanted to hunt, because a lot of times I pull up a place and cut him, and he go out there and wheel around and go on property I didn't have permission and stuff. And then later on looking into it and studying it, I realized what my dog was doing, so therefore I had to change my hunting strategies when I took him hunting. Well, a lot of his pups are the same way. I can name several pups right now that do the same thing Diesel does. Uh, he's really starting to come around on his accuracy on laying coons up or winding coons. If coons ain't down moving, Diesel's going to throw his head up. He's going to lay up coons and wind coons. But if they're down moving, Diesel likes to run a track more than he does to wind them. But if coons ain't moving, he's going to do that. And that's one of the biggest things that I see and I really like out of the Rowdy line of dogs that they're doing. And that's probably coming from Rowdy's mama's side and his daddy's side, from what I've been told by both of them. uh, of that line of dogs. Terry's told me about his line of dogs, and I know they do that a lot. And then Mr. Doug Nestor, that had the line of dogs that Jill was out of, that was one of their big things too. And I just, it's been a whole different training thing that I've had to learn, and a whole different hunting aspect that I've had to learn than dogs that back in the day that was all track minded and stuff like that. It's been different.
Yeah, well, sometimes we have to adjust our way of thinking to fit the dog if we really like the dog and the dog's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing and not just, out there fiddling around somewhere.
Yes, sir.
Well, Brandon, we've been at it almost an hour and a half. I know it don't seem that long, but
Okay.
we are right at an
Yeah.
hour and a half. And I know you've told some stories through here, some good stories and some serious stories. But do you got a coon hunting story you can share with us? And is there anybody that you want to thank or shout out before we get off here?
Man, I got so many people I could thank, for along the years that's helped me. Uh, but we probably ain't even got time for all that. But as far as getting me to where I am right now, I got to thank my cousin James, uh, John Kirby, Terry Goforth, John and Keelan Anderson, Alan Short, all them guys right there. They've all helped me tremendously. I call them, ask them questions on breeding, or I ask them questions on what to do on a hunting situation with my dog or training a pup. Every one of them, right, Johnny on the spot, helped me, give me advice. Them guys right there, I got to thank them first and foremost. But as far as hunting stories, man, I got so many of them, but probably my favorite one was my first night I ever went coon hunting, and that was with my uncle Jimmy Welch. Uh, he was hunting an old Walker dog, and his name was Walker Dog. He was just no great dog, but man, he was sure enough a nice one. Me and my cousin Travis and Jimmy went, and I remember the spot exactly is on the county line, Ottawa Craig County line, over by Blue Jacket, be east of Blue Jacket. You turn, you go down there. It used to be the old Cherry Ranch, and we cut them dogs in there. And like I said, it was the first night I ever went. An old Walker dog went there, got struck, and he wheeled this track around. He got in there by an old slough, got treed. We walk in there and found the coon in the tree. It wasn't a very big tree, just an old willow tree around the edge of that slough. And uh, we didn't have Jimmy was my cousin, but he wasn't always the most lawful person when it come to coon hunting. If his dog did a good job and he thought it needed a coon, even if it wasn't coon season, hey, we're gonna get this coon out with this dog. Which I think all of us as cooners have done that, but we didn't have a gun. But I remember that night because I ended up climbing the tree and shaking that old coon out. Man, I didn't realize how good them suckers would hold on to them trees. But I finally got that coon shook out, and that was the first time I ever got to see a dog fight a coon or any of that. That's a memory that stuck with me the rest of my life, just seeing that, putting all the stuff that I'd listened to over the years in my bedroom, listening to them dogs run and do what they did, and then seeing it firsthand. That right there was my biggest my biggest thing, and it just blew my mind how them dogs could figure out exactly what tree that coon was in, and then what they was willing to go through to get it. You know, these dogs are something else, and I just blessed that I got the opportunity to learn how to do it, and I still get to do it, and I hope I get to pass it on to my grandkids. My kids know it, and they don't hunt like they used to with me, but they still like to go every once in a while. I think once they get their own deal going, they'll probably end up having hounds of their own. I can't wait to take my grandkids and pass it on just like I had it passed down to me.
Yeah, well, you definitely wasn't going to get the dog's name confused when you were out there. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's what it's about: passing it down, passing it on. What give them the opportunity, take them hunting, and whether they take to it or not, is just giving them the opportunity. And usually, if they ever get that opportunity and get to see the dog work, it usually comes back around later in life for sure.
Oh yeah. Our sport's a dying sport. I think the biggest thing is getting kids out there and showing them. And that's my biggest thing. I take kids hunting with me all the time. Just that's what I enjoy doing, and it keeps them out of trouble and stuff.
Yeah,
Teach them the right way, and that's all we can do.
yeah, for sure. Well, Brandon, we've been at it for just over an hour and a half, and I really appreciate you taking your time to be on the podcast today. I know we had talked about doing this, and you know, finally got it worked out where we could get together and get it done. So I really appreciate you taking the time on this Saturday, pretty Saturday, at least in Southwest
Yes,
Missouri. I
sir.
assume it is in Oklahoma too.
Yes,
And
sir.
I sure appreciate you taking your time to do this, and hopefully I can get over there and go hunting with you one night. We're not that far apart.
Yeah, I'd like to. I'd like that.
All right, man. Well, we're going to get off here, and thank you for listening to the Coonhound Collective podcast today. And we're about to hit the woods. Thanks, guys, for listening to the Coonhound Collective podcast today. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to listen to the podcast. If you don't mind, head over to Facebook and give us a like, and head over to Instagram and give us a follow. It's both at the Coonhound Collective. Also, if you would like to reach us here at the Coonhound Collective, you can reach us at thecoonhoundcollective@gmail.com. If there's someone that you would like to hear on the podcast or a product that you would like to hear talked about, please send it to the Coonhound Collective at gmail.com. Thanks again. Have a great day.